Within the United States criminal justice system, we have unfortunately given crime and justice a face. Those with the right face who commit wrong crimes get right justice. Those with the wrong face who commit wrong crimes get no justice. We're searching for equality and fairness.
So tell me, who is Kristie Puckett-Williams?
So Kristie Puckett-Williams is a girl that was raised on Exit 4, which is Nations Ford Road,
Okay.
in a neighborhood called Winsong. And so I was born in 1979, in the late 70s, grew up, in the early 80s and 90s in Charlotte, and that's who I am. I have two older brothers, and one is a firefighter, has been a firefighter here in Charlotte since I was about 13. And I have another older brother who works. My parents were married until my dad died of skin cancer 2 years ago. I think what's interesting about my family is that they moved here, though, because my dad being white and my mother being black, they're from South Carolina. And so they were married shortly after the Supreme Court ruled that it was okay for black people and white people to get married. And so when my dad was discharged from the Army after Vietnam, he and my mother got married. And I think that they moved here because they were told that, where they were living couldn't sustain their relationship. And so that it would be better if they moved to Charlotte.
So what did that mean for you growing up in a biracial household? Was there ever a time when you felt like you had to lean to one side of your identity, or how was that growing up?
So for me, we were raised as black children because my mother understood that even though we were light-skinned, that we were going to be perceived as black,
Okay.
right? Or something other than white, right? Maybe not so much black, but you won't be perceived as white. And so she felt it necessary for us to understand who we were, and that yes, we were mixed, but the world is not going to see you for that. They're going to see you as non-white. And so I think that was a good foundation for us because we were very clear from the beginning about who we were.
Right.
And my mother and father were very open and honest in conversations about race.
And did you get any backlash about that from your schoolmates or anybody that you were in class with? Feeling like you had to was there ever a time you felt like you had to be in both worlds of the black world and the white world?
No, because I knew I was black. So I didn't feel like I had to be anything other than what I was. I couldn't change it, right?
Okay.
My dad being white was my dad being white. But that doesn't mean that we were any less than or any better than anybody else.
Yeah.
We were raised that we were the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a good foundation.
Yeah.
We may look different, but we're the same.
Right. And I know that we'll get to this later, but I know that you went through some specific struggles with your life. At what point did things start to really take a turn for you? How old were you? What was happening? What was going on?
So my life had become unmanageable, pretty much. So I have several felony convictions. And in 2009, when I was released from the Mecklenburg County Jail, I was sentenced to probation and to treatment because of a long-term drug addiction that I had been battling for most of my 20s. And so when I was 29, I was sentenced to treatment and I was able to complete that treatment, and that was pretty much the turning point, being mandated, being made to go.
Yeah. And having gone through all those different things, do you feel like at every step of your justice process you were treated fairly?
At no steps of the process was fair. But the system that we have, the criminal legal system that we have here, is not intended to be just. It's intended to maintain anti-blackness and white supremacy. And so if we understand that it's doing what it's intended to do, we as the people have to educate ourselves about the system, decide how we're going to engage the system, and then expose the truths that we have come to know about the system so that other people can then join us in building the collective power to change the systems, because it's not just the criminal legal system that is broken. All systems in America are broken because the foundation of this country is white supremacy and anti-blackness. And so until we dismantle those thoughts and ideas, then we will continue to see the symptoms of those ideas, which is mass incarceration, war on drugs, racist dog whistling, gerrymandering, all the things that we see happening that we're like, oh, that's atrocious, family separation. When we think about people and families who are trying to come into this country seeking asylum and they're being separated, we have people in our community that we're separated from every single day through the war on drugs and the mass incarceration of Black people.
Would you say in America that we spend too much time trying to change hearts and not systems?
We spend too much time not worried about our own heart. So because if you worry about your own heart, then you don't have time to worry about other people's heart. If you are intentionally making sure that your heart is pure and clear, right, and that you're doing the right thing, then you don't have time to mind other people's business, right? So what you can, your contribution to society is your own heart, not the transformation of anybody else's.
So after all the multiple kind of felony charges and being incarcerated and having to get through that, talk to me about how you got out of that situation.
So I have to tell you then a little bit about how I got into the situation to talk about how I got out. So I was involved in a relationship with someone who was physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally abusive to me. And we were together for most of my 20s. And I didn't have the coping skills. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I wasn't really offered resources. We had probably 10, 11 police reports over the years between us, and that's just the police reports that we had, right? Yeah. That's not the nights that police never got called. And so I was injured, seriously injured on multiple occasions, right? And eventually I discovered that he was using drugs, and I began using drugs with him, right, just to be honest. And it was a response to that unhealed trauma and escape, right? Not understanding, not being offered anything, not knowing what to do, also being really ashamed, right? And feeling really guilty about the choices and the decisions that I had made. And so the shame and the guilt, the addiction, all of that just led to a more intense addiction. And as I went further through the addiction, I lost everything. So I lost custody of my oldest child. I went to go live with my mother at the time. I lost my housing. I lost cars. I lost my job. And I lost my freedom.
Injustices in the system. So you've been through a lot. You've overcome a lot. You've raised a beautiful family. Your work now is with the ACLU.
Of North Carolina,
North Carolina. ACLU of North Carolina. So this is amazing.
Yeah.
So there's this trend going on in the country of people who have been incarcerated, now going out to the community and becoming advocates.
Yes.
And I know that with the ACLU, you're specifically over something called the Justice Campaign.
So I'm specifically over the Campaign for Smart Justice.
Campaign for Smart Justice.
Yes. So the Campaign for Smart Justice is a nationwide initiative happening all across the country. And so the ACLU has decided that incarceration and mass incarceration is something that they can tackle, that they can lend a hand to the work that has already been being done, right? Because this is nothing new, right? There have been people from day one who have been fighting this unjust system, right? And so the ACLU's goal is to end incarceration by half. So decarcerate America by half and end the racial disparities in the system. And so I am the statewide advocacy and campaigns manager here in North Carolina. And so our work is going to be building collective power in communities so that we can hold elected officials who are actors in the court system more accountable than we have in the past. And so that will be through partnerships with community organizations, people in the community, as well as a partnership with elected officials. The ACLU is a nonpartisan organization, and so we don't really care whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Socialist. It really doesn't matter. There are certain things that have to be done, right? And so we are fighting for those things. We are fighting for a more just system.
More just system.
For Black people.
For Black people specifically.
Specifically.
And
because when we say end racial disparities, what are we saying? What's the most racially marginalized group? That's Black people. And so we also have an immigrants' rights campaign. And so immigrant rights is a huge topic today. And the most marginalized in that fight, the more Black people are deported than any other group, right?
Really?
Than any other group. And so blackness around the world is a bad thing, right? And so we are dismantling those thoughts and those beliefs, those anti-black thoughts and beliefs and systems that can uphold those beliefs, right? We have to dismantle those because we recognize that it's unjust. And that's the bottom line.
So in knowing that a lot of the systems that oppress minorities in America are designed
that way.
Designed that way. So there's almost this constant push and pull that we can't seem to escape. So almost like we have to change everything that made America America to make America
great again.
Great again, or equal,
it wasn't even great from the beginning. So like
or equal in the way that we imagine it should be.
So then that will require radical change, right? Because we can't rebuild with the old parts. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, when the system keeps recalibrating, right? And the recalibration is the reform. I don't think we need to reform the system. That's just a reformation of what's already there. We can't have this because we're going to be reforming white supremacy and anti-blackness to show up in different ways.
So are we wasting energy and time in saying criminal justice reform?
We need to be abolishing this system.
Yeah.
Because until the system is abolished, then things will continue to be the way that they are. We'll still see people incarcerated. The crime rate has decreased, but the rate of incarceration has increased.
How much money are we making off incarcerating
So
black men
it
specifically?
costs the state of North Carolina, it costs them $37,000 per inmate.
Say that one more time.
$37,000 per inmate.
Wow.
And there are 37,000 people in their custody. About less than 3,000 are women. So 33,000 men. And they do racial breakdowns. I don't have the exact number of black versus white, but we know that it's overwhelmingly black men that are in their system. And Hispanic men in that system, right? So men of color, but specifically black men. And we pay a lot of money to keep them in cages, but we're not willing to invest in them when they come home to keep them out of that cage again, right? And we're not willing to invest on the front end to keep them out of that cage in the first place. So intervention is needed for the people that are coming home, but we also need efforts of prevention so that people never go inside. And that starts in school and with the educational, healthcare, all kinds of systems that we know black people don't have access to, that there are barriers that block them from equal and equitable access.
So for those individuals who go to jail but get into this cash bail kind of thing, I know that's something you talk a lot about.
I do.
Talk to me a lot about cash bail and the problem with that.
So the problem with money is that it doesn't ensure safety, number one, right? So the whole premise of bail is to ensure that someone comes back to court, right? And so if we believe people are dangerous, putting a price on it doesn't stop their dangerous. And so if we put a $500,000 bail and they're dangerous and they make that bail, they're still out. So the bail industry touts it as a public safety issue, but it's really not. It really is a money issue. And so what happens is we've created a system where poor people who are overwhelmingly black and brown experience a different type of justice. Whereas you or I may have $500 to get out, right? There is somebody else who's charged with the exact same thing that doesn't have that $500 and can't get out, right? And so the average American, the average black person cannot afford $500 extra for a person to get out. And that's either to pay a bail bondsman, the percentage of the entire bond, or the entire bond. So it's a wealth-based system that's been created. People who are rich or who have access to wealth have a different kind and amount of justice, and that is not right.
Wow.
And that is what we're fighting against.
So wealthy imprisonment versus poor imprisonment.
Wealthy people don't see very much prison. And so we know that being detained pretrial also puts people more likely to take a plea deal because they just need to get home. We know that within 2 or 3 days, people lose things such as custody of their children, their home, their jobs. And so now people are losing and coming out with nothing And we talk about family separation at the border, but we're also separating families every single day when someone is arrested.
So outside of money, when we talk about plea deals, outside of money, what are some ways that the system, the powers that be, coerce people into these plea deals? And I know it's kind of like you're in between a rock and a hard place when it comes to a plea deal. So talk to me a little bit about that.
So a plea deal basically is if you're being held pre-trial, when you take that plea, when you accept that plea, based on the terms and conditions of that plea, you can get out You can get out once you take that plea, right? A lot of cases you can't. You'll go on to prison, but it's just the pressure. Being at home and being able to fully engage in the system, being able to call your public defender back, being able to go to meetings with your public defender, not that person having to come into a jail to talk to you, having access to your documents, just having the ability to participate in life and in the court system at the same time is important. And people take pleas. Most of the cases, 95% of our cases are adjudicated through plea deals. They're not adjudicated through trial. And if people were home pre-trial, we know that the majority of them come to court. That's what we want. We want the people to come to court. That's the whole point, is for people to come back. And the majority of them do. So the money plays a major issue, but also race and implicit bias plays a huge issue. How the judges see people, how people see themselves, how we see each other, right? How we see each other is such an important concept that we don't talk about when we talk about abolishment or criminal justice reform. These are humans we're talking about. These are people. And when you talk about people, you have to respect and protect their humanity. And jails and prisons don't do that.
I like what you said when you said to participate in life. That's such a simple statement, but yet so powerful. Dismantling people's ability to participate in life and all the joys that come with life.
In meaningful ways. When you are experiencing the violence of poverty.
The violence of poverty.
The violence of poverty. Poverty is very violent. Not knowing if you can pay your rent. Not knowing if your lights are going to be on or off. Not knowing if you're going to have cold water or hot water or any water. Not knowing if you're going to have phone. Your kid needs medicine. If you need to buy some shoes for your kid. Like, poverty is violent. Like, the trauma that poverty causes on a person's brain and their spirit that goes unaddressed every single day in our community. That is what we're seeing. We have to address the poverty. Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Maslow's hierarchy.
Basic needs have to be met.
Absolutely.
Once my basic needs were met on a consistent basis, I was able to focus on those other higher needs. Love, I'm happily married today. I'm a law-abiding citizen today. I have self-esteem today. All of those things. I am marching towards autonomy, right? With the realization that I will never reach full autonomy. Because it is always supposed to be a journey, not the destination. And so I think a lot of people, when we think about people who are currently or formerly incarcerated, we think we know their destination. And what I'm here to do is flip that script. You don't know their destination. You only know a part of the journey. And if they are so willing to share their journey with you, then you should be a good steward and listen and learn. Because we all have something to teach one another, and we all have something to learn from one another. We are still humans. We are still people. We are still can be good community members, good citizens, civically engaged, involved. We can be all that we were ever designed to be. But what we will need is people to allow us to be that. And they need to allow us the space to figure that out. Because once you've been dehumanized, demoralized, and hurt, right?
Yeah.
To move through, not just through autonomy, but move through to healing and more towards healing, it's going to be bumps in the road. And we have to allow people that space. No one is perfect. And I think that we have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to have more grace for one another.
So, Kristie, and we're going to be completely transparent, some people will hear your speeches, they will see you at different events, and they will say, okay, you talk about poverty creates desperation, and we'll say that's not an excuse for someone to be a criminal or to commit crimes because they're in a desperate situation. And when someone adopts that mindset, typically that's not an excuse, it makes it easier, or it seems like it makes it easier for them to not give that person a second chance when they do come out. What do you say to those people who kind of, when someone is trying to change their life and you continue to keep your boot on their neck based on what they did? I really want you to talk to those people, right? What do you say to those individuals who are unforgiving, don't possess empathy?
That chickens come home to roost. If you have children, you will learn. That's it. Chickens do come home to roost. But there is a law of universality, no matter what your belief is. You will reap what you sow, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to understand that they are products. We have to understand that those people are just products of the ideology of white supremacy and anti-blackness. They are the manifestation of that. They may never get it, and that's okay. That's just a distraction from the real work. The real work is, as you say, the revolution. Right? What does it look like?
Yeah.
What does that look like? There are always going to be naysayers. There are always going to be people who don't believe. But that doesn't stop me, because there were people who told me I couldn't go to school, that I couldn't be a good parent, that I couldn't ever be married again, that I could never be 10 years clean from crack, that I couldn't have a master's degree, but I walked across that stage with a degree like everybody else, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you can't listen to people's idea of what you know you can do. Like, I know me, right? And you know you, and I know my community. I know that I am a product of my community, and I am a result of my community that is just as resilient as me, because you don't make it through 400 years of enslavement without being resilient. The fact that Black people still exist today is a testimony to how resilient we are, despite all of the best efforts to annihilate, dehumanize, and get rid of us. We are still here, and we are still thriving. We are not just surviving. And that is what I say to the people who attempt to put their boot on my neck. But it's very difficult. You have to be real tall, because I'm standing tall. I'm not on my knees. And so I think that's what we as a people, as a community, have to do, is get off our knees and stand up, because people can never walk over you unless you're laying down. And we lay down far too often, when we should be standing up fighting.
Wow. Kristie, one day you're getting out of your bed in a jail cell.
Yes.
And today you're getting out of your bed at home with your family to go and be an advocate for those who experience
who are still in the jail cell.
I want you to tell us, where can we learn more about your work, where you're going to show up, your website, your links? Tell us.
So if you want to follow the work that I do across the state, that will be at the ACLU of North Carolina. So that email address is www.acluofnc.org.
Yeah.
And if you want to email me directly, it's kwilliams, KWILLIAMS @acluofnc.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jason D. Perry. I have been here with the amazing Kristie Puckett-Williams, and you have been watching Human Interest. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.